Al Bernstein for the Boxing Channel here with Dave Farrar, who is a superb boxing broadcaster in the UK, a gentleman I've had a chance to work with on Channel 5 telecasts, and he is here doing the Amir Khan Danny Garcia fight for BBC Radio. It's going to be funny for some fans, especially in the U.S., to hear of a fight being done on radio because they're not done so much here. It's fun to do fights on radio, isn't it?
Well, it's a lot of fun. You have to paint a picture, of course, and that's very different from TV. It's an obvious thing to say, but it's a grand old tradition in England, boxing on the wireless. You know, back to the old days. Mm-hmm. You hear stories of fights in the 50s and the Ali fights. Of course, they were pretty much BBC Radio to start off with, and it's always been a bit of a dream of mine to call a fight for the BBC from Vegas for a world title. So, bit of a dream come true. Done lots of TV, but never done BBC Radio. So, luckily, I'm standing in for someone. So, it's great news. It's great for me anyway.
Well, this is a lot of fun. Yeah, we were joking before. I've done boxing for, 30-some years. I've done 2 fights on radio in all that time. So, it's not often, especially on this side of the pond. The fight you're doing, of course, is a very interesting one. Amir Khan, who lost his title last time out to Lamont Peterson, though subsequently has gotten that title back because Peterson tested positive for a banned substance. But nevertheless, he knows that he ended up on the short end of the scorecard. And now here he comes back against a very tough fighter in Danny Garcia. What do you think his mindset is in trying to make sure that people know he's still in the higher echelon of boxing?
Well, I think it's really important the way he approaches the fight. I've got to say I've been really impressed by the way that he looks. I think he looks fantastic. He's got a new conditioning trainer in Ruben Tavares. I think it's worked. He looks great. He also looks calm and measured and looks like he's ready to do a job. They've been trying, I think, to draw him in at various press conferences. Not oddly enough at the weigh-in, it didn't really work. They weren't trying to sort of wind him up in a way, but I do feel they've been trying to do that, and Khan has been so cool and so calm. And of course the issue with him is they have a game plan and he has to carry it out. He didn't do that against Peterson. For all that there was an issue with drugs afterwards, he still didn't necessarily do that. Freddie Roach spoke to us yesterday and explained what the game plan was. He needs to use his feet. He needs to try and stay on the outside. He knows he can hurt him, and that's what Khan's got to do. But the question is, can he carry the game plan out? I think he looks in a great frame of mind, and I think he's ready to do it. And I agree with Freddie Roach. I think he's got the better guy, and I think that's the way the fight's going to go too.
This is an interesting weekend for boxing in Europe because while Amir Khan fights here, and of course they'll be listening to you and also watching on Sky TV back in England, another fight that has garnered all kinds of attention, maybe for some of the wrong reasons, but still, David Haye and Derek Chisora. When people are faced with this weekend, especially in the UK, where do you think their main interest is, or are they kind of divided?
They're not divided. I mean, this is where you use that awful word purist, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a lazy way of getting out of things. You say it's one for the purist.
Yeah.
So let's trot out the answer that I should give, which is that purist would be interested in Khan against Garcia because it's a world title unification fight. And of course, the general public who aren't purists will be interested in Haye Chisora because it's a freak show and because there's been so much in the build-up that I'm sure you covered already. But the honest answer is that's probably the truth, I'm afraid. And there's a huge publicity around Haye against Chisora. As a boxing fan, you hate the fact that Haye Chisora gets more publicity than this fight. Yeah. Of course you do. I'm sure you do, regardless of whether you're American or British or whatever. But it does drive you crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's 35, 36, 37,000 people at West Ham's football ground. You can't ignore that as a journalist. I know a lot of journalists who don't particularly like that it's going on, but it has to be reported. And the thing that I find interesting is that we both cover a young guy called Tyson Fury, 23 years of age, doesn't seem to have the publicity he deserves despite being on terrestrial TV in the UK, and he beat Derek Chisora this time last year. And somehow, folks, I think everyone's forgotten that this was the case. But he beat Derek Chisora, and it's Tyson Fury and David Price who should be getting the headlines. But unfortunately, the world of sport doesn't work like that, as you know. Yeah,
we live in a reality television world, and if there ever was a fight that was made for reality TV, it's David Haye and Derek Chisora. Before I let you go, you alluded to the whole heavyweight picture, which has been a little moribund, especially on this side of the Atlantic, where there aren't very many great prospects. But that's not really so in Europe. And you mentioned Tyson Fury. We've done several of his fights. He's a 23-year-old, still a work in progress, probably not ready to fight one of the Klitschkos. David Price, who at 28 got a slow start in his career, but physically is imposing and could be a little farther advanced.
Yeah, I mean, Price has been very well matched, hasn't he, so far? Fury's been well matched in patches, I think, and has done very, very well and looks great. I think the last couple of months that we've seen him, he's lost all this body fat. He looks fantastic. David Price, as you rightly said, is physically imposing. I think the thing that's so interesting about Fury and Price is exactly that, their physique. They're both very good boxers, decent fighters as well. We don't know too much about Price's chin yet. We know that Fury's been put down once, but it was kind of a flash knockdown. It was one of those that caught him on the chin as he was coming in, and it's hard to stay on your feet with that. I think Fury's chin is okay, but what makes that so interesting for me is the Klitschko's. Vladimir, really, we have to say now, because it looks like Vitaly is going to finish off in the autumn. But the thing that people struggle with against the Klitschko's is the physical size. David Haye's a very, very good boxer, of course, but he just couldn't cope with that. He couldn't get inside and he couldn't hurt him. Tyson Fury and David Price both can, and we know that. And I find it fascinating that Vladimir is talking about a fight against Fury already next year, because I think he wants him early. I think he wants him before he should get him, and I think McKenzie's too cute for that, and so is Frank Maloney with David Price as well. And I really think we could be on the brink of two fighters, forget the two for the moment, worthy though they are, let's be honest, they're both very good fighters, Haye and Chisora, and Haye will get another shot probably at Klitschko at some point, but what's really exciting is what's going to happen in 2 years' time, when Fury and Price, having probably fought themselves, are both ready to fight Vladimir Klitschko. Then it's a great time for British boxing, I think.
Absolutely, and we live in an age when if you're a heavyweight and you're over 6'7", it means quite a bit. Dave Farrar, thank you for being with us here, and thanks for being so much fun to work with. He, by the way, is a terrific author with a book called The Perfect Punter, which is a wonderful tome that deals with, interestingly, sports wagering.
It does. We're in Vegas. Al.
Yes, and we are in Vegas. And, of course, it's something that's very big across the pond as well.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of money bet, certainly on Khan against Garcia. There'll be a huge amount traded on Haye against Chisora as well. I think a lot of people will be backing David Haye to win inside the distance. That will be the popular bet for me, for it not to go many rounds. I tend to go the other way. I think Haye might win on points, but not that I'm supposed to care, of course. But sports wagering is a huge thing, not just horse racing, but sport in England. And my book, as Al said very kindly, The Perfect Punter, is all about that. Available Amazon.com and indeed on Kindle in the US of A. And there's a lot of US sport in there as well, which I think otherwise I wouldn't mention it on the boxing channel, but there's a lot of US sport in there too.
And you could mention it because it's so well written and so interesting and very funny and serious in spots and poignant that it's well worth looking at. Dave Farrar, thank you for being with us. And of course, he will be covering Khan and Garcia for BBC Radio.